Hello, and welcome to the AI Office Hours with Covenant Technology Partners, your go to podcast for all things artificial intelligence. I'm Jen Macivor, your host for today's episode. Thank you for joining us as we explore the transformational impact of AI in manufacturing. Here at Covenant Technology Partners, we strive to help you with your strategy, determine your data and infrastructure, as well as security readiness, while assisting you and your teams in adopting and driving this value. Before we dive in, let me just introduce myself briefly. I serve as our practice leader for consulting, data and AI, intelligence, and automation. Today, we're joined by Doug Meyer. Hello, Doug. Thank you for
Great.
joining.
Good morning, Jen.
Doug's our managing partner here at Covenant Technology Partners. He's been advising manufacturing clients regarding technology for years. And for the last several, Covenant's been focused on helping our clients leverage the various AI technologies. So, Doug, again, thank you and welcome. Would you share a little bit more about your background and expertise?
Well, thank you, Jen. I'm very excited about this conversation today. So I always like to start early. So I actually grew up on a farm in Illinois, and that's relevant because I learned how to work hard, and I learned the value of owning things and taking care of things. Then from there, I've received a computer science degree and became a programmer up in Chicago, and and then from there, I learned a lot about business and a lot about manufacturing and applying technology as a solution solving business problems. And so for the last 30 years, I've been leading people and businesses with a heavy focus on manufacturing. So worked in a lot of different types of manufacturing organizations. And I'm also very fortunate today to lead Covenant Technology Partners. And Covenant, we help manufacturing companies and clients to apply leading technologies to solve complicated problems. And of course, today we have this incredible toolbox called AI, and very excited to talk about that toolbox and how that toolbox can be used to really generate value for all of our clients and all manufacturers.
And Doug, I'm really excited for this topic. We have such depth and experience, and there's so much changing in the marketplace. So, of course, today we're going to focus exactly on that AI and manufacturing. So, AI is a huge topic. Um, so, could you help us frame up today's conversation?
Yeah, absolutely, Jen. And it is such a big topic that, when we use the term AI, and like a lot of things, it gets used in a lot of different ways. So it's such a big topic. It's always important to kind of create a framework. So the way we think about it is AI is a toolbox, right? It's not one tool. It's actually a toolbox with a lot of different tools in it. And so those tools include things like machine learning. Now, machine learning has actually been around for a long time, right? But it's absolutely a major tool in the AI toolbox. Another important tool is computer vision. All right, think about computer vision. That's another very important tool in the toolbox. Another really important tool is natural language processing. Okay, natural language processing alone, and this is one, quite frankly, that we're seeing a lot of manufacturers getting value from, because literally today, every one of our manufacturing clients is able to speak every language known to man. So in high school, I took German, and I'm just going to say it was a total waste of time. Because today I can speak fluent German with the use of technology. So even though I'm an English speaker, I can speak German, I can speak Spanish, I can speak Mandarin through the capabilities of AI. This is really relevant for a lot of our manufacturing clients. Who we're working with a client right now who has 12 different languages spoken within their different plants. So the ability to share content, to share communications across that set of workers is a huge step forward, right? It relieves a lot of effort that used to be required. So natural language processing, again, just one tool in the toolbox. Another important tool is document intelligence. All right, the ability to take, whether you're taking paper, whether you're taking digital documents, whether you're taking records with signatures and contractual meanings, the ability to take these documents and actually have them understand and take action in their own is really important. Things like knowledge mining, and finally, the very popular generative AI. And so leaving generative AI to the end here, but Obviously, Gen AI has created tremendous value and a lot of buzz and a lot of, and it's not just buzz, it's real value. But that's just one of the tools in the toolbox. So I think it's always important to know that we have AI is a big toolbox with a lot of tools, and those tools can be used alone or they can be worked together,
Mm,
right, in conjunction. And that's where we're seeing a lot of value being created, is when these tools are being used together. Um, and so again, as we sit here on April 11th,
mm,
2025, this is not something that we're talking about in the future. This is
mm,
something that we're in the process of the maturation. And so a lot of things we're going to talk about are things we're doing today,
mm.
but we're also going to talk a little bit about, because clearly what we're doing today, we're at a very early stage of maturity. And so there's a lot of maturation yet to come, and we're going to talk a lot about what's possible and what's going to go on there. An example real quick of some of these tools being used together. So for example, if you're a manufacturer of anything that drives or has an engine, quite frankly, you're already using AI in advanced ways, because who today wouldn't, if you're an auto manufacturer, wouldn't be considering self-driving, right? Think about self-driving. Self-driving is a combination. It requires computer vision, it requires machine learning, and it absolutely requires generative AI. So you're combining these different technologies to create that solution. But quite frankly, all manufacturers, regardless of whether you are manufacturing something that is going to have AI embedded in the product, all manufacturers can take advantage of what we call personal productivity and functional optimization. So those are kind of I'll call it the table stakes today.
Mm,
If you're not already using AI for personal productivity across your team, how can I get productivity lift of my entire team? Let's say my customer service team, or my accounts payable, accounts receivable team, or my HR team, or my marketing team. If I'm not already doing that, then you really need to think about that, because your competition is. We can say that with confidence. Also, that functional optimization, looking into specific functions. How can I optimize that HR function, or how can I optimize my marketing function with AI? Again, tremendous value and lift. And again, not something in the future. That's happening today. And then finally, the fourth. So I've kind of talked about in the product, personal productivity, functional optimization. The fourth area is, quite frankly, where the biggest values, where we anticipate the most value to be created, but it's also the most challenging to predict. And for this, I always like to, as it relates to AI, I always like to compare it back to the introduction of the internet. Okay, so if you think back, the internet was commercially made available to us in 1994. In 1999, I was meeting with the executives of a major retailer, $11 billion retail organization. And I was meeting with the executive team talking about e-commerce and e-business. Now, mind you, in 1999, Amazon was an online bookstore, right?
mm,
So this big retailer did not recognize Amazon as a competitor. They thought they were using some nice tools, but anyhow, so I did my presentation on e-commerce and how it might change the environment, how they could take advantage of e-commerce. And at the end of the meeting, the CFO came and said, "Hey," as I'm wrapping up my stuff, said, "Hey, nice presentation, but you have to remember." And basically, what he articulated was that the buying patterns weren't going to change. People were still going to come to a store and buy stuff, right? Well, so what they failed to recognize, and quite frankly, I left that room, and in hindsight, within 3 years, by the way, that company was sold. All right.
mm,
And I firmly believe that had they recognized both the threat but also the opportunity they had, that they could have been more significant than Amazon. Okay, because at the time they had more resources, they had better merchandising ability, they had better supply chain, right? So there's no reason they couldn't have been better than Amazon had they been, again, two things. One, quite frankly, fear, right? They
mm,
were not afraid. They were not afraid that their buyer was going to change their habit. And instead of going to a store, I can just order a number of things online, have them show up at my door, and guess what? If I want a pair of shoes, I can order three of them, try them
mm,
on at home, send back the ones I don't want. And so what they didn't predict was the buying patterns was going to change. And quite frankly, that's where the big value and the big risk exists in AI is it's going to change how people behave, how buyers behave. And so as a manufacturer, the big thing is predicting how is it going to impact my customer, and in many cases when I'm selling to businesses, the customer of my customer.
Right.
So anyhow, with that, sorry, that's kind of a long-winded
No,
answer.
no, it's exciting. And what I hear too is, given your experience, right, and being on the first wave of e-commerce and internet, it's almost, it's almost personal for you, right? Like, I
Yeah,
really want people to see the value and see the potential. I'm
well,
excited
absolutely,
today to
Jen.
talk about this.
Yeah, because in fact, I mean, I've witnessed and I've had friends who were
Mhm.
both injured and lost money because of the internet, but I've
Right.
also have friends that have made a lot of money and created a lot of value because of the internet. And I see that opportunity existing for all of our manufacturing clients today. And they're going to go into one of those two camps. Either they're going to get their value proposition is going to be compromised because someone else is leveraging AI, or they're going to leverage AI to create competitive pressure for their competition. So
Now, Doug, let's kind of shift to today. Our statistics start to tell us that the first mover advantage, um, you're almost on the tail end of first mover with a lot of manufacturing. But we're moving into a time when, a much broader spread of manufacturing organizations have already started, early stages of AI. They're already seeing value. So
yeah.
could you share with me and with kind of the audience, what are these kind of key benefits to manufacturing?
The big opportunities are, and again, I kind of go back to that framework of those four different categories, right?
Mhm.
So I can get benefit from personal productivity. I can get benefit from, and quite frankly, if I'm considering adding more folks to my customer service staff, well, can I instead add some AI and make each of those customer service reps more productive? All right. So that's an easy opportunity for value. I optimize my business functions? Absolutely. Can I add AI to my products? Absolutely. Is it going to impact my industry? Is it going to change customer behaviors?
Mhm. Mhm.
Absolutely. But to get very tactical, so today, what we're seeing is clearly we're seeing productivity boosts, right?
Right.
So AI is increasing productivity in manufacturing. Already today, we're seeing that significant increase. And again, it isn't like a lot of people hinge this AI started with the release of OpenAI's and generative AI. Remember, AI really existed long before that. It's
Mhm.
again, Gen AI is a tool in that toolbox, but machine learning has been around for much, much, much longer, right? So it's hard to say, okay, AI started on this date, but I mean, when you think about all the predictive maintenance, right? So I'm sure the majority of our audience, if you're leading a manufacturing organization, you're absolutely leveraging AI or data and for predictive maintenance. That's something that people are doing today. And again, that's going to continue to mature because the tools get better and better.
Mm.
So predictive maintenance is important. Quality controls. Quality is something that it has been a great use case of value where manufacturing clients have been getting value. And again, for already years leveraging AI, that
Mhm.
vision, the ability to see, for a computer to see every product that comes off a line, or to see every product and to be able to go around it and to test that for quality and recognize things that are out of tolerance. That's an easy thing for AI. We're also seeing some differences in regions naturally, right? So some areas are more aggressive leveraging AI, others are more aggressive. Um, you know, not more aggressive. More, some are not using AI to that
Right.
extent. I'll
Mhm.
also share another big thing, and I want to go back to, when we think about industrial changes, changes to the industry. One of the things we're already seeing is is a major change. As anyone that's been in manufacturing for a while, for decades, literally, manufacturers have been leveraging salary arbitrage. Right?
Mm.
Hey, if I can make my widget with labor that's cheaper over in another country, a lot of manufacturers have done that and have been able to lower their cost of production by doing that. What we're seeing now is that even low cost labor. Well, for one, it's gotten more expensive, right? So
Mm.
those economies where in the 80s and 90s were very they prospered. Those economies prospered, and as a result, labor increased. Still has salary arbitrage opportunities, but what we're seeing now is that automation. So, if, in other words, if I needed 200 people to run this plant, if I can now run that with 20 people or 40
Right.
people, guess what? That salary arbitrage, the value proposition shifts, right? So, and by the way, this automation runs 24/7. It
Yep.
doesn't take lunch breaks. It doesn't go to sleep. It doesn't need vacation. There's a lot of opportunities that. So we're seeing this shift from,
Mm.
at least we believe we're starting to see this shift from the model where salary arbitrage was very popular to automation can be even more valuable.
So, Doug, there's a lot I want us to come back to in the description of how AI is impacting manufacturing. I'd like to get back to a few of those examples. Before we do that, though, as a leader in a manufacturing organization, I'm needing to think of a lot of different things while running my block and tackle everyday business, right? Through thick and thin and challenging times. What should or what are some strategic decisions that manufacturing leaders need to consider as they are looking at their company objectives, as they're looking at their business, as they're looking at their industry? What are some of those decisions they need to consider?
Right. So here's what we recommend first. The first thing is to assess how AI is going to impact your customers and not just your products, okay, but how it's going to impact buying behaviors. All right. Because we're confident buying behaviors 10, 20 years from now are going to be significantly different than they are right now. And those buying behaviors. So, for example, if I make refrigerators that are used in retail, um, and the way people buy refrigerated products changes, well, guess what? It's going to impact the demand for my product, right? So us understanding how, and again, I recognize predicting the future is hard, right?
Mm.
But understanding and being able to sense and recognize those changes early, giving you time to pivot and being on alert and
Mm.
recognize changes are going to happen. Let's pay attention to that. So to me, strategically, that's the number one. But once you get beyond that, um, again, then the next question is, because either, like I said, either AI is going to really have a major impact on the product, or it's not. If I'm making plastic bottle caps, all right, AI is probably not going to have a major impact on my product, right? And maybe how that's used, but AI is going to impact my cost of good or cost of production, absolutely, right? So how can I use AI to reduce the cost of operations?
What I heard you say, right, is as a leader, I need to consider based on my operations and my broader market, knowing what my strategic objectives are. How does AI align, right? How might it align? Um, what else should I be considering?
Well, so basically, if it's not going to impact my products significantly, right? Now at that point, I have to make a decision. Do I want to lead in AI, or do I want to be a fast follower and leverage, quite frankly, leverage a lot of my vendors, right?
Mm.
Because I hear a lot of our clients say, well, my primary ERP provider or my primary MRP provider is already adding AI capabilities, and that's meeting a lot of my needs. I'm getting some lift from that. And
Mm.
that might be fine, right? So it might be fine as long as you're not at risk of major transition in your industry, right? Or
It sounds to me that I need to really be clear on what problems I'm needing to solve and what
yep.
might be the best ways today, right? We know it's a rapidly changing technology, right? So, what problems are we trying to solve today with AI? And then I guess what is that the most efficient way to address those problems? If you don't mind, I'd love to share because I'm out in the market as well, right, with our clients.
Please, please.
And I was speaking with an organization, they have a real challenge, in forecasting and planning. And we want to help position them to leverage AI. Uh, Once we started to peel back the layers, there's some core kind of data cleanliness, data recency. There's some core processes that absolutely applying AI capabilities to forecasting and planning is um, one of the most popular use cases. And right before we do that, we want to look at the core problem and peel back the processes and that actual data, right? Because you and I know that AI really depends on that data. How about once we're kind of clear on where our strategy is going, how do we believe our market might be impacted? Now I have clear business problems I want to address. I've shortlisted some of those I'm going to address with AI. What do I need to think about next?
So let me come back because you also
Mm.
kind of asked an earlier question that I think is really important. So first of all, AI is not, a silver bullet that solves everything, right? And so we always want to be careful. AI is not the hammer looking for a nail here,
Right.
right? But and we recognize AI is also maturing fast, right? So what we have today in AI isn't going to be what we're going to have more tomorrow, and we're going to have more that next day, right? But it is important. So it is important to do a good, effective cost benefit analysis. We're not advocating. We never advocate to do AI for AI's sake.
Right.
Absolutely not. But is it important to? Is there value already available? 100%. Is it difficult to identify that business case? Actually, we're finding it's not. It's actually pretty easy when you actually peel back the costs. It's actually pretty easy to identify that. Another important misnomer is that AI is not a technology thing, right? So it's not I just have to buy that AI technology and plug it in. Now we do AI. Absolutely not. AI is actually it's absolutely a business thing, and it impacts every part of your business. Okay, but there are a couple technologies. Technology is absolutely the enabler, and the two major technologies that enable it are data. First and foremost, data. So data is the fuel of AI.
Mm.
Okay. So one of the first places you're going to want to look when you're considering what are your AI opportunities is my data. And we'll come back to that, but also then security, because guess what? Security also, and we can talk a lot more about that. It the bad guys also have AI, right? So the bad guys have these new tools that they can use, and that enables them to impersonate things, impersonate people, right? With high effectiveness, right? So we have to recognize the bad guys have these tools as well. So now the good news is that we can use the tools to defend against the tools. Okay. But if you're not using that, then you're just letting the bad guys have the good tools and you're not using the good tools. So anyhow, so it's not necessarily a technology thing, but you absolutely have to leverage technology to enable it and to protect against it.
Mm. What I hear you articulating is being really clear on your security and governance and making sure that is in place to support your roadmap, right? I also hear, right, your data security and your data maturity. How robust and how well are you governing your own internal data? I think the other new thing to think about when we apply AI models is what data is that AI model trained on, right? Because we're seeing the rapid growth of being able to subscribe, right, to fit for purpose AI models and to understand what data is that being trained on. So there is a lot there. So it sounds like we really need to partner in the executive suite, right? Our business leaders and our technology leaders, right? Who, of course, are business leaders. They have a specialty in technology.
Jen, you just hit on another important point. There's two different types of AI tools already available in the marketplace: consumer products and industrial products. Okay, and it's important to remember to recognize the distinction between those two. Consumer products. So a classic example of the internet consumer product would be Google search.
Mm.
Tremendously valuable, but guess what? Whatever I put in that search window, I was giving that data to Google, right?
Right.
With AI, that's even more important because if I'm using a consumer product, Okay, I am their product, right? So I am giving them my content. There are also industrial products that will allow me to protect my content. So if I'm a manufacturing company, I strongly encourage you recognize the difference. Make sure your team recognizes the difference between consumer products and industrial products in AI. Don't use consumer AI products for business needs, or you're going
Right,
to be giving away unintentionally
right.
giving away intellectual property that you probably don't want to give away. So just recognize that distinction between consumer products and industrial products, it already exists in AI, and you want to, as a consumer of AI, you want to recognize that difference and use it in the appropriate place.
I think that is a really important, kind of cautionary point, right? To understand, um, the service that I'm buying or subscribing to, what is happening to my, data, my business data, that I'm using that with. Hey, let's shift a little bit, as we kinda, we're gonna I'd like for us to shift, away from kind of how the things I need to consider as a leader. We've also seen some leaders be, really on the cutting edge. Is there a mindset, that folks adopt really to help them kind of turn the corner when it comes to understanding how to apply AI to their business problems?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's another great point. Because what we find is that, well, excuse me, like the adoption of anything, people have a natural set, right? So there's early adopters, there's
Mm. Mm.
early majority, late majority, there's laggards, right? So one, it's important to recognize if you're the leader to recognize your where you are, but also hopefully on your team, on your leadership team, on your board, you have some diverse perspectives on that.
Mm.
I This is a great opportunity to lean into those early adopters, right? Because
Mhm.
those early adopters, they're going to be more curious, they're going to be trying things. And yeah, so first thing, and absolutely recommend is what we'll call an AI first leadership, right? And
Mm.
or an AI first mindset, right?
Mm.
And quite frankly, and I talk about this a lot, we all get into our habits, our patterns, right?
Mm.
This AI really requires to use it effectively. It really requires leaders to shift out of their traditional way of doing things and put AI first. And I'll tell you, I've been using AI for years, and I still have to consciously think about this. This isn't something that just I automatically do. It surprises me how hard it is to get out of those ruts. But so AI first mindset. It's also critical. We really view AI adoption as a maturation process. So again, this is not a
Mhm.
binary thing that either I'm using AI or I'm not using
Mhm.
AI. And organizationally, it's very much a maturation process. So as a leader, you want to make sure you understand, okay, where's my organization in that maturation process, right? And then within the organization, you're going to have different people, right? So you're going to have, let's say, the marketing department. They've been talking about it. They've been using OpenAI for a long time, and so they're pretty mature in their use of AI. But meanwhile, let's say HR, and I'm picking things randomly. Let's say HR, we love paper. We're going to stick to paper. We've been doing this for this way for many years. It works. It's not broken. We're not going to fix it. Fine. Okay. But as a leader, you want to understand where's your organization on that continuum of maturation. And then I'd encourage leverage those early adopters, leverage those people because what they can show you is they can show you where to find value, right?
Mhm.
So you can get the value, and then now you're not talking hypothetically. Hey, I think we might be able to get value. You're speaking specifically. We saved X dollars, or we gained this market share because of this activity, right? So you have that specific business case that you can point to say, hey, we got real value here, and now we need to get that value elsewhere as well. So
That
anyhow, it's absolutely a maturation process.
that's a great, transition. We are, kinda halfway through today's, office hour, and I wanna spend a little bit of time kinda going deep on a few specific, use cases that are actively being tackled in the manufacturing industry.
Yeah.
I know you and I spoke, right, before this, and some of those most popular use cases include things like predictive maintenance, including kind of overhauling engineering design and the whole PLM process, forecasting and planning. Um, would you like to kind of go deep in a couple of those? Which one would you like to do first?
Well, so we talked a little bit about predictive maintenance
Mm.
already,
Yeah.
and again, that's one that most organizations are already doing some level of predictive
Mhm.
maintenance, right? IoT has been around for a long time already,
Mhm.
and most manufacturing companies are already leveraging that. What AI does in that scenario is it takes it to the next level because predictive maintenance before AI, it would notify you of something that needed to be done. With AI now, you can actually do it.
Yeah.
So in many cases, I can actually do it. So if I need to make an adjustment, instead of just telling a technician to go make that adjustment, with AI, I can actually make that adjustment, right? So it takes it to that next level. And again, these are things that are happening today. This is not the future here. Another big area is product design, right? So,
Mm.
and I'll go back to, you really want to pay attention to your product design because AI is being embedded in products, even products that you might not think. So kind of putting an AI wrapper around the product, even though the product itself may not
Mhm.
need AI, putting a wrapper, an AI wrapper around it can give it additional capabilities, right? And additional value and additional competitive positioning, better competitive positioning. So if you don't have AI in your product design life cycle, in your roadmap, you'd certainly want to consider that. And seriously, and it might be a place that it's not necessarily
Mm.
intuitive, right?
Mm.
Um, Jen, you mentioned forecasting and planning, and I want to come back to that for a second
Mhm.
because forecasting and planning, I don't know any leader that's totally satisfied with their
Right.
forecasting process, right? We always want better forecasts. We always
Right.
and as I said earlier, predicting the future is a hard thing, right? And
Mhm.
I'm not saying AI, but what AI does is it gives you the ability because today, if you're like most organization, you have 2, 3, 4 data sources that you're bringing together to try to predict what's that demand going to look like, what's our cost going to look like in the future, right? And you have a probability associated with that. Our ability to bring masses of more data, right? So more data sources, and then integrate that with our current data is tremendously beneficial. Now, I'll also talk for a minute here about CPG manufacturing. So if you're developing consumer packaged goods, okay, then you already know the impact of data well, and you're getting data from either scanner data from Walmart, or you're buying data from Nielsen or IRI or one of those commercial data providers. We're seeing tremendous opportunity, and I said earlier, data is the fuel for AI. So, quite frankly, the more data, the better data you have. That's a competitive differentiator, major competitive differentiator when it comes to AI. So, if you have a good subscription to Nielsen, and I have my own internal data sources, and I might have some unique data sources that maybe my competitors don't have, that's going to give me a major competitive advantage because I'm going to be able to optimize my operation. I'm going to be able to make not just make better decisions. I'm going to be able to make better operations as a result of having that better data. So the again, I come back to the key to forecasting and operations planning is really comes back to that data, right? And having good data that I can trust.
And I really like the challenge of forecasting and operations planning and the difference, right, that machine learning and AI, generative AI bring to this long time business challenge. Historically, we've defined better formulas to take in information and then forecast, right? We've defined better formulas. Machine learning and natural language processing, this allows not about defining a better formula, it's about actually training your model based on good examples. It's a shift. For those of us who grew up grew up configuring software, setting the rules for our large enterprise systems, this is different, right? Of course, there are rules and in frameworks, but machine learning literally learns and improves, and it really has to do with how you're feeding and adjusting that learning process. It's it's incredible. Sometimes it's mind-boggling. It's pretty amazing.
Well, I couldn't agree more. And I'll go back to excuse me. Microsoft uses the term Copilot for a lot of their AI products.
Mhm.
And I think that's actually a brilliant name for it because what it does, what we're seeing AI do primarily is it's allowing people to do things that they wish they had time and resources to do all along, and now they do. Now, what used to do some market research. Let's say I'm considering a new opportunity, either moving into a new market or developing adding a new feature to a product, and I'm trying to figure out predict what do I think the market demand for this is going to be. I mean, I could have hired market analysts and had them do all sorts of analysis and go buy some data sources that might inform that decision today, and that take weeks, right?
Mm,
Today, I can within seconds or minutes, I can type prompt, and I'm getting access to tremendous volumes of data and getting informed with that analysis.
mm.
It is truly mind blowing. But again, it's kind of like it's my Copilot. Don't think of it as a today as an independent thing. It's used best when it's just adding capabilities to people you already have,
Yeah.
right? So it's giving them better capabilities, stronger and much faster. I
Yeah,
could
no,
go.
Doug, thanks for that. And our conversation sort of unleashes my curious cat mind, right? There's so much that's possible.
Yeah,
I think it is important though, as we're talking about AI in manufacturing, and we're talking about what leaders need to consider. Um, let's shift our focus to common barriers and risks that must be addressed and not one off one time addressed, but kind of integrated into kind of the AI leadership within an organization. What are those common barriers and risks that you have seen?
yeah, absolutely, Jen. And yeah, so with every opportunity, there's also risks. So in everyone's calculus, you want to consider those risks. And we've already talked about a couple of them. You know,
Mm,
the big risks that are going to put your business at risk are changes in buyers' behavior, right?
mm,
That's the big risk. Again, so our recommendation there, pay attention, right? Make
mm,
sure you're sensing, make sure you're recognizing, what buyers are doing, what's being offered to that market. Just pay attention there. But then when you get a little more tactical and things that to care about today, absolutely data and data complexity, right?
mm,
I hear client after client saying, we have all the data we can handle. We just can't get the information out of it. We can't get it. Well, so that's an important issue,
mm,
right? So you need to have data in a state that's usable, right? And there's the good news is, guess what? We have AI tools that can help. Where again, 5 years ago, it was hard to clean up data.
yeah.
Um, Today, I'm not saying it's trivial, but it's much easier than it
Mhm,
used to be, right? So that getting that data organized in a way that can be leveraged and can be integrated from Nielsen and Walmart and my internal data, much easier than it used to be. Um, the other big risk that we already touched on a little bit is security, right, and
mm,
cybersecurity specifically, right. So the risks that you know people are going to get into my system, impersonate someone, and get access to things they shouldn't have and exploit that. It gets higher every day. And again, that's why you have to make sure your defenses are keeping up, right? Because if the bad folks get significantly better than you are, and you're not advancing that, you're putting your business at risk. And
mm,
there's plenty of stories in the news. I don't have to go into elaborate on that for everyone to understand that risk. But also there's risk now of, and we saw this again. I'll go back to the early days of the internet with search, right?
mm,
When people would deploy search for their organization, guess what? I can search for payroll data. And I might be able to find payroll data because so many people had security through obscurity,
yeah,
right?
right.
Gosh, I didn't know it was in there, and no one found it before because it was buried in someone's personal drive somewhere. Well, so AI creates a similar risk, right? Because if I can type in, hey, how does my bonus compare to everyone else's bonus
Mm,
this
yeah,
year, right? That's a prompt people can enter, and AI is going to try to answer that question. And if you aren't protecting your data, then it's going to give them the answer, right? It's going to give people the answer.
mm,
But again, the good news is the tools to protect are also keeping up. But if you're not paying attention and you're letting that lapse for a year, guess what? You've
mhm,
exposed
behind.
yourself, right? So it's something that you just have to do on an ongoing basis. Another risk is, of course, today is skills, right? Who knows how to apply AI? Who knows the AI technologies? It's actually a very small supply of folks
Mhm.
that know that. So what we always recommend though is, and again, the whole industry is dealing with this, but make sure that your leadership is being educated and do it intentionally, right? Don't just hope that someone reads the right or listens to the right podcast or
Right.
whatever. Be intentional about that development of leadership and of also the board, right? Make sure
Mm.
that the board is stand up to date, because this is not something that's gonna. This is not it's not something that's gonna go away. A trend that's gonna be
Mhm.
very different next year. We see this as, quite frankly, a 30-year, even maybe a 40-year maturation trajectory, right? Of which we're probably 4 or 5 years into it, right?
Right.
So that's kind of where we are in that life cycle. So there's a lot of education for a long time that we have to do. I'd encourage you, all leaders that are listening, please invest in your leaders to help them to understand the technologies. And the best way to understand it is to apply it, right?
Yep.
The
Use
third
it.
way
Mm.
is that
Yeah.
maturation process, because if you apply it, even if you're applying it, and again, you don't have to. And I want to talk about the investment, right? So I'm going to kind of segue into the next thing is, how do I invest in AI? Well, so and many of you probably remember back in the days of the internet, we had this thing called the killer app,
Mm.
right? And the killer app was kind of a moonshot, right? It was that big investment that I was going to make that was going to change the industry, right? And quite frankly, some of those worked, but a lot of those were big wastes of money, right?
Mm.
So we actually advise against the killer app. Now, if you recognize your industry's getting turned completely upside down. So, for example, if you're in the legal industry, all right, legal industry is getting turned upside down, right? You might have to do a moonshot in that case.
Mm.
But for most manufacturers, you don't have to do the moonshot. So what we recommend is incremental investments, right? Smaller incremental investments, and each one of those small incremental investments should have positive ROI. There's no
Mm.
excuse for saying, we're just going to invest in AI and hope that we get a return down the road. No, actually, the value is there today.
Yep.
But so finding where can I apply that value to get value today, but then do it incrementally, because each of those incremental steps is going to mature your organization, it's going to mature your leadership team. You personally are going to learn things that through the application and actually seeing it in play, that it's going to change your mindset, which is a very positive thing. I mean, literally, I saw a demonstration of one of our folks this morning, something that one of our folks built this morning, and it changed my mindset this morning, right? And so now I see things, I see opportunities to solve problems in a different way than I did even last night. And that's how AI works. You'll get your mind blown like on a daily basis with the innovation and the opportunities and the creativity. So anyhow, so we recommend an agile approach to that investment, and investing in your team skills is a great way to do it. Probably the last one is I'll talk about is around the ethical application of AI and then your governance, right?
Mm.
So what we don't recommend is we don't think that you necessarily have to put a whole new structure in place that's called the AI team or whatever. You probably already have good governance in place organizationally today, right? So
Mm.
making that assumption, so assuming that you already have good governance in place today, AI becomes something that they have to govern, right? So it becomes a component of that. But recognize it again. Similar to security, it's a double-edged sword. AI is a double-edged sword. It might be used negatively to compromise the ethics of your organization, to compromise the safety of your organization. Absolutely, it can. And especially if you're a regulated industry. So, for example, let's say that you're an FDA regulated, you produce a food product, right? Guess what? You have major processes tracking certifications, certificates, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of those are on paper. You're getting them from a variety of different suppliers and in a variety of different forms. AI is perfect. And you probably
Mm.
have people that are receiving
Mhm.
those and entering data off those documents.
Mhm.
As a perfect scenario to help you maintain compliance, right? So as a compliance
Absolutely.
tool, AI is fantastic with regard to compliance. So I kind of view, the ethics and governance as it relates to AI as, again, it's a double-edged sword. Yes, there's more things, more risks, more things we have to be concerned about, but we also have new tools and better tools to maintain compliance
Mm.
beyond what we had before. So using it to counteract the additional risks that we have is critical.
Um, Thanks, Doug. There's a lot to unpack and kind of revisit from today's conversation. I think it's been wonderful, and I really appreciate your time. As we start to bring our conversation to a close, Doug, as the managing partner at Covenant Technology Partners, could you actually share how we as a firm are helping our manufacturing clients?
Well, excellent. Thank you, Jen, and thank you for doing this, Jen. This is fantastic. Obviously, this topic is so exciting, and love talking about. But at Covenant, and hopefully you heard it in the story I shared regarding that big retailer. In the age of the internet, they had the opportunity to make a good decision, didn't make that decision, and as a result, I would say they probably didn't maximize the value of what they had. Right. So as Covenant, we hope to make sure that none of our clients have that experience. We hope that we want to help make sure that we want to partner with our clients as advisors, right? So we've intentionally invested a lot to understand AI, to understand the application of AI, and we're in a fantastic position where we get to help clients on a daily basis to apply AI to get return on investment, right? So that puts us in a unique spot where we're able to help our clients to both advise, understand AI, advise how might it impact my products, how might I be able to leverage it within my HR function to optimize my HR function. So we love to partner with our clients to both advise, but also we have the technical skills to also apply, because there are some technical chops that are required to actually
Mhm.
do the application. So it's not just, hey, coming up with great ideas. It's also about the execution and making sure we're able to implement investments that have ROI, right? So we're not just saying, hey, just throw down millions of dollars hoping that something comes back. No, we absolutely have proven you can do this in incremental steps where you're getting regular ROI on those investments. So anyhow, so that's our goal, is to make sure that we're best able to partner with our clients and partner with our manufacturers so that they are able to leverage their assets, their resources, to really take advantage of the opportunities that exist because of
Mhm.
AI, and also be protected from the risks that are also are coming about as a result of AI.
Yeah, thanks so much. I've enjoyed getting to know and working with the firm, and the fact that we can go from concept to concrete, right? From strategy through security and governance. We have some spectacular teams in our data, um, and then through operations, right? We have um, our, well, I've been calling uh, smart automation, right? Which goes from the easiest or the most straightforward low code, no code process automation, still leveraging AI plugs, all the way through our ERP and CRM systems. And then we have this solid, amazing group that does custom dev, right? The app dev, when we really get into the most complex scenarios. So it's been a joy, right, to work with a firm and to bring Covenant to our clients. So I hope to be able to work with lots of folks as we kind of empower our own teams. All right. So I want to thank everyone for joining and thank you for watching today. Remember to subscribe to our Covenant Technology Partners podcast and follow us on social media, particularly LinkedIn. We have a number of locations you can follow. Upcoming in some following podcasts, we are working to bring to you how AI is impacting cybersecurity, both your security with your own enterprise and more generally. We are looking forward to a special guest to join us to address how AI is changing the engineering and construction industry. Uh, as well as some of our data experts. And so it's been a joy to share AI and manufacturing with you today. And until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the world of AI. Thank you.